Welcome, everybody. This is Dave McCoy, the CEO of Splinterlands. We just put out a release today. If you haven't seen it, it's on Peak D. It's linked in our channel and Discord in our announcement channel. Today, it's going to be just me in the beginning on the first call. Matt will be joining me for the 8 p.m. call. He was unable to make it today for this morning, but he'll be in the 8 p.m. call. So the reason for 2 calls today is simple. It's a pretty big announcement. It's a big change. I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions. So we're going to be here to answer those questions. So in Discord is going to be the primary place. So if you're in Discord, go to the Town Hall chat room and go ahead and any questions that you have, just preface them with questions. I will go through and answer them. There's no specific time frame for how long the call will take. It could be 20 minutes. It could be 2 hours, or longer. It just depends on how many questions you guys have and how much you want to know. But I totally understand that people would have questions because, like I said, this is a pretty big change. I'm going to start by just going over the message that I put out and clarifying it, making sure that everybody understands those points. And then after that, then Clay is going to join us from the DAO, and then be available for people that have questions there in terms of what happens to the DAO, what's that process going to be, things like that. So let me go ahead and get started. Navigating market realities and our path forward. I talk about, we've been around 8 years. We've navigated all kinds of, ups and downs in the environment. 2021 was like the most amazing thing ever. A ton of our competition is down. Over that time, many of them are out. Even the companies like Axie and Gods Unchained. I mean, they're still, in some cases, worse case than us in terms of, on a price standpoint. It's a tough environment. But, one thing that Splinterlands has always done is we kept our head down and kept building through it all. And we plan on continuing to do that as well. You can hope, that you're going to have a market rebound and things are going to go up. But at the same token, you have to realize what kind of market you're in, what's the environment, and make sure that, we go forward. So for over nearly a decade, we built a rich, complex ecosystem together. Every player, collector, and stakeholder has developed a unique vision for what Splinterlands should be. Essentially, this is letting everybody know, like, everything that we, all the promises, all the commitments, all the, what Splinterlands means, to me, all that is the past. Going forward, we have to manage our business in a way that focuses on the future. And, there are some times when some of those past issues, are blockers. So, for instance, things like the Wild Pass, some people like it, some people don't. Everything that we're going to do, though, we have to look at through the lens of what is going to drive value for the future. So in the past, we've been beholden to a lot of policies that may or may not have been the right thing to do at a particular time, and it's cost us. So the biggest of which is that we've committed to spending more money than we actually had. So the company has been in a position where we run the amount of money we spend at a higher level than what's been coming in, and it's eventually cost us. In the past, did it in hopes that the market would pick up and that the next halving would happen and there would be a big move. And essentially, what this is saying, we have to start from a blank slate and go forward from here, as opposed to trying to always catch up to the past. Our core vision remains unchanged: asset ownership and fun to maintain a deep and engaging game where players generally own the assets they buy or earn. A gateway to Web3. It's still, we believe, and I believe, that Splinterlands has a tremendous opportunity to use gaming as a way to bring people into the Web3 space. We do have to do a better job of making it simplified so that people can do that. But it's definitely still a big opportunity that nobody's really cracked before. A diverse ecosystem. We have three core pillars. We have our regular gameplay, which is ranked, tournaments, and brawls. We have land management, which is a very big part of our system. And then we also have DeFi. So, DeFi is a big deal. And of course, land management and ranked play. And then honoring our legacy. For 8 years, we built some amazing, cards. We have 6 core editions with many different branches, from reward cards to promo cards, and all of those assets. And now we're expanding them to collectible skins and all kinds of things like that. So, at the end of the day, the goal is to continue to support the collectability and the value to all the old cards as well, but do so in a way that's smart. We want to appeal to the entire spectrum of gaming and crypto. So we're not, I know we've had a lot of conversations in the past about, is this all about gaming? The gamers or the crypto bros. That argument has been running for years. And essentially, it's both. We need both. We also need collectors. So focusing on not just one aspect over the other, but focus on all the major aspects, which is gaming, crypto, casual players, and high-end collectors, and regular collectors for that matter. Low-end collectors are fine too. So essentially, we need to manage the business in a way that appeals to all that, as opposed to one or the other. A lot of the conversations that we've had over time have been like, no, my way's the best. No, my way's the best. And people have, fought to the point where, it turns people off. But we're going to try to support all those 4 key groups. In terms of the core principle for our next phase to achieve long-term viability, SMC, which is Steam Monsters Corp., and the community must align on several hard truths. And this first one is the one that makes everything. Like, this is the one thing, if you want to take this away, it's the biggest key of everything. Revenues must exceed expenses. So for the project, we have to be in a position where the revenue exceeds expenses. If we don't, then we're constantly just shifting the burden from one asset class to another asset class, and we're constantly feel like we're falling into the abyss. So we have to put ourselves in a position where revenue exceeds our expenses. I know a lot of people, argue things like we should have sold this in DEC, or we should have sold that in SPS, or we should do more for vouchers or do less for vouchers, and all those kind of conversations. But when you boil everything down to the issue, it is revenues must exceed the expenses, period. Any business runs that way. Splinterlands, crypto, all have to meet the same set of rules. If we do, and we are, then we're gonna be in a position where we will have extra to buy back tokens, buy back assets, buy back, invest in the game. There's multiple things we can do with profits, but being in a position where we're constantly trying to catch up, trying to handle, shortfall it just puts us in a bad spot. I tried to cut the expenses in the last proposal down to our last year's run rate. That was a good effort. The DAO passed the IP agreement. We put that in place, but since then the market has deteriorated, sentiment has deteriorated, and people looked at the situation and started to get worried, like, well, how are we going to make these bill payments? Because the community could not see a path forward. That's getting fixed with this today. The revenues are going to be assumed to be much lower, and the expense rate has been reduced dramatically, more than 60%, to account for that. Managing for the future, not the past. We can't let the historical policies dictate the future for survival. Again, I've already talked about that. Broadening our appeal, we must develop our mechanics to welcome new and casual players. In the past, certain systems inadvertently rewarded legacy players and large-scale holders at the structural expense of newcomers. We will subtly modify mechanics to create value for the entire system, ensuring a healthy pipeline of new blood into the game. We have not achieved, new players for a long time, so we have to focus on that. Proportional cost distribution, operational and development costs must be balanced across all products and offerings. We cannot subsidize one group at the expense of another. What that means is we have all different types of players. We have the DeFi players, we have the land players, we have the gamers, the people playing the actual game. Within the game, we have modern, we have wild, we have survival, we have guild brawls, tournaments. All these aspects has to be fair and balanced as to who pays for the cost to run the system. It's not any one group that should carry the load. In the past, we've relied on the modern player to pay the whole load, and that's just simply not a sustainable business model. We have to have participation across all the systems to be able to make sure it's fair and balanced. And then in terms of realism, if you look at the broader macroeconomic environment, it's very volatile just in general. The world, the wars, the crazy things happening all across governments all over the world. Crypto markets is no exception. Bitcoin's down 41% this year. There's global inflation. There's all kinds of unprecedented activity, and we'd be foolish not to handle that. So again, we operate in a world that we have to be realistic, and therefore that's why this decision is being made today. The opportunity ahead, despite these challenges, we also have competitive advantages, and I want to make sure everybody understands that. We're a leader in the crypto gaming space, period, still. And I know, people like, oh, how could that be? You're down 58% this year, in the last year. Well, so is everybody else. In fact, most of our competitors are down more than us that are still around, and a high percentage of them have actually gone out of business. So I know people tend to want to look and say, hey, you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. Well, maybe we're not doing so many things wrong. Maybe it's just a tough environment that we just have to make sure that we run in a responsible and regular way. We've done a lot of things right. We've started from nothing. I mean, literally nothing. And we built a deep game with a tremendous amount of tools. None of our competitors have the things that we have. So that becomes a tremendous asset once we get the other things taken care of. And honestly, the biggest thing that we have that's a problem is that we just spent more money than we brought in. So again, going back to that, I'm going to hammer that point all day long, is that our revenue must exceed our expenses, period. I mean, there is no other choice. In terms of how this affects, I have an appendix up there of the restructuring and the SPS DAO proposal. Clay will be joining here in a few minutes. I've worked with him as the CEO of Splinterlands, and he is the DAO manager, and we put together what we believe is a plan that will affect positively both groups. Meaning, I care about Splinterlands. The Steam Monsters Inc. is the developer for Splinterlands, and of course the DAO is the group of players. We work together. Everything is a common interest in terms of we both want to see it succeed. But at the same token, both are going to require a vote. In the case of Steam Monsters, it's going to require a board of directors approval. In the case of the DAO, it's going to require a DAO approval. But again, we've outlined plans. It's going to be a proposal that you guys are going to have to pass. Once you guys pass, then the board of directors will also, weigh in on it. So just like with any proposal, we've come up with what we think is a good solution, but we're just two guys. The community may or may not disagree, may or may not agree, and the same thing with the board of directors. So I want everybody to understand that the proposal itself is up to the DAO. Like the DAO, can vote it down or replace it or put something else up. That's purely up to the community. But we did the best we could at putting together a comprehensive plan. I'll outline that plan. What that means is we're cutting the contract from $5,500 payment per day down to $2,000 payment a day. Again, that's over a 60% reduction. That is going to happen regardless. Meaning that's going to happen. Period. It's already in process. People have already been notified, and that those actions have already been taken. Whether or not the DAO wants to continue to fund Splinterlands pay Splinterlands for development of the game, that's a DAO decision. But the team is already made those cuts. How would that affect by the reduction in the proposed contract down to $2,000 a day, which is much more affordable? The incentive split obviously has to be shifted because we're not getting $4 million anymore. So the shift moves down to a $1.65 million, which it takes into account the first couple months of the 2-year contract. So as an adjustment to where, since it's moving from $5,500 a day down to $2,000, then the 50-50 split starts a lot earlier. What that means is $720,000 is our break-even point, and at $720,000, to give you guys an example, last year the main set we did over $2 million, so that's roughly 1/3 of what we did on the last core set. So it's a pretty big reduction in terms of spending, and it puts us in a position where if there's extra and we come out anywhere near where we did last time, even if we come out like half as much as we did last time, it would still mean profitability for the DAO. And as far as the team goes, I'm using the extra to give back to the employees that are taking the cuts. Also, the future pack sales, 2% of the main edition will go to the SMC so we can incentivize, because I've dropped the salaries or the contractor fees to the employees drastically. No one was left unscathed. And the one thing that I think is incredibly important for everybody to understand is our employees / contractors have accepted that. They've rolled up their sleeves and said, we're going to make it work on far less, because they want to see the project succeed. So while you would think that dropping expenses at this amount of drastic amount would cause a massive flight, to the contrary, most of our employees, not everyone, but most of our employees have rolled up their sleeves and said, hey, I want to make it work. So I think that's a testament to the quality of the game and the strength of the community and the fact that they believe as well. This restructuring will give the DAO significantly more financial flexibility to manage its treasury through this market downturn. So having to pay $5,500 a day versus having to pay $2,000 a day is night and day. So all the people that, were out there talking about how we were going to run out of deck and we're never going to have it, like we're not going to be sustainable. We're now very sustainable. At $2,000 a day, we bring more than that in on average in credits. In fact, we've been lately bringing in almost double that. So we're going to have an opposite situation. So instead of all the deck going out of the DAO to pay the team, now there's going to be, assuming that the rates hold the same, we'll be in a situation where more cash comes into the game via the credit purchases than is needed, and then the DAO is going to, if it holds true, the DAO will need to actually buy back deck. So it's going to flip that situation. Impact on Steam monsters. Like I said, we've already done that. The reduction in force will inevitably impact the delivery speed of certain non-essential features, which is a fancy way of saying that we're going to do our best. We're obviously going to be a little slower. Whenever you drop expenses down to this degree, it's going to have some effect. But on the flip side, maintaining stability and longevity is a very important thing at this particular time. We want to make sure that we see our 9th year anniversary, our 10th year anniversary, and many more after that. So it's very important that we let everybody know that we're going to address the situation, which is exactly what this is. In other words, I'm going to make sure that revenues exceed expenses. So as long as I'm here, as long as I'm the CEO of the company, as long as you guys continue to hire the company, you can count on that. You can count that I'm going to make sure that if sales go up, we can do more. If sales go down, I'm going to take more action. But I want to put us in a position where nobody's talking about whether Splinterlands is going to be around or not. So it's understandable why people were worried. They don't understand what the impact is, on a day-to-day basis, what triggers can be pulled. But essentially, there was a incomplete information of a lot of people in the community. But now there should be much, much better information, which is, we can make cuts, we can do what is needed and still make sure that we move forward. We still have a lot of things that we've been working on that are still going to happen. Things like the binders that's coming out, which is a really cool feature. We've got a land card set we just launched. We have a core set that we've already worked pretty much through. So there's still a lot of things that we've done, and we're going to continue to do as many things as we can. Just like when we signed the deal 2 months ago, we didn't commit to much more than what we committed to here. And we said at the time, we're going to do as much as we possibly can. And that's exactly what we've done. We did a whole land card set. We did a summer fund set and, brought money in for the DAO. And we're going to continue to do things like that. One last thing I'll say, like, I'm sure it's on the tip of everybody's mind, like land. Is land going to go forward? Is that, going to be something that we're going to do? And yes, land is a big deal. So Cryptomancer is fully aware. He's in a position where he's probably going to deliver faster. I've moved the devs to a project basis. So if there's a project that we can do that is funded properly, then we're going to do it, and they're going to get paid to deliver. So in the case of the land buildings that he's working on, I would say that that's probably going to happen faster than it would have otherwise as a result of this change. So, having said that, I like Clay on. Let me see if Clay's on. To my Blaze. Blaze, is Clay on yet? Yep, there he is. So, Clay, welcome. Anything you would like to say?
Hey Dave, thanks for having me on. And yeah, just to kind of like re-verify what Dave said, I mean, we've been kind of like working behind the scenes to ensure that we're looking at essentially just like establishing a more sustainable path forward. We've kind of been like reassessing over the last couple of months since we put in the original proposal. And I know like I'm reading a lot of the comments and I'm kind of watching. I know like a lot of people are nervous and they feel like there's like some potentially like big bad news coming. But like honestly, I don't really see this as like a big bad news event personally. I think if anything, I would hope that it would instill confidence that we are willing to basically adjust and get ahead of this problem before it becomes like something threatening, right? Like I think that we're like looking at the current market conditions and just like looking at how things go. I mean, I don't want to be one of those guys that tells you like we're just waiting for things to improve and stuff like that. Like I would rather, personally say that like we're assessing the situation. We think we should, be more aggressive in cutting and ensure the long-term survivability of the project. And I mean, I think Dave has done an excellent job in working with the team to basically find ways to cut expenses and also like essentially like create what I would consider really good incentive structures that align productivity with you know incentives going forward, so that way people will not only be encouraged to stay around for the survivability of the project, but also have upside potential. And honestly, like I'm kind of excited to imagine a scenario where we could actually be cash flow positive, which is something that like Dave and I have talked about many times in the past, is getting the project to a cash flow positive position. And we've looked at things like diversifying revenue streams. We've kind of like done cost benefit analysis on many things like battle passes. And I know that there's tons of things like I would like to do. I think there's a lot of things that can be over time, like they can essentially like combine and create like bigger lasting effects. But like in the near term, I think like the only responsible thing to do is we essentially have to get costs under income, right? Like we have to become cash flow positive. And I think that if we can do that, I think that in itself can instill a lot of confidence in the project, because one, like being cash flow positive means we're not seeing the company and or like these contracts and the development be a net drain on the ecosystem. I think it's obviously I like what I'm hearing, Dave, but also I've been part of it, so I don't know if it's really fair to say like I like what I'm hearing. But I do think that we're making the necessary changes, and I do think that they will ultimately align incentives to create a better product for everyone, and to give us, most importantly, that long-term chance of success, which is I can tell you from like reading the community's feedback, talking to people over the last couple of months. I mean, like honestly, like that's our biggest thing. It's like a lot of people just feel like, whether it's just token prices, whether it's market conditions, whether it's just general dissatisfaction with the speed of development or whatever. There's a lot of people that feel like, we're not in as strong of a position as I think we actually are. And I do think that it's, like I said, it's just absolutely critical to make these moves while we have the opportunity to do it, because we cannot continue to operate off the back foot, right? Like I absolutely do not want to see this project being in a situation where we're constantly trying to play catch up, where we're constantly trying to, you know, basically keep ourselves alive. Like I don't think that's any kind of position to thrive in, right? Like we have to be in a place where we're ahead of the curve, where we're making positive momentum. And I think that like cutting these expenses, renegotiating the contract, and making sure that we align basically all of our sales and incentives in a way that accomplishes that goal is how we have a chance to thrive going forward.
Yep, I agree. And by the way, Clay, um, obviously I'm part of the process, so I've had plenty of chance to think about it as you have. And my reaction is the same as yours. At first, it sounds like a big deal, like, oh my God, that's a 63% reduction in expenses. That's a lot. And how are you ever going to deliver? But, walking through it, putting together the plan, realizing what's needed, making sure that people understand and have confidence in the future. Uh, those things are very important. And I'm actually excited about this. I think that you're going to find that we're going to produce more things than we did before. I don't want to commit to that, which is, why I told people to be realistic in this. But for instance, on land, there's a question in the chat already about land. What does this mean? Is Manchester still going to develop land? And the answer is absolutely, he's going to develop land. So he's incentivized. Now we're aligned. He's now going to be paid upon delivery, which means he's going to be a lot quicker than he would have been before. So there's going to be a lot of changes that are going to be helpful and positive. And if you look at how much we delivered in the time that I've been here, which has been a year and 4 months, and the CEO for 3 months, I think you can see that I don't like to sit around and not do things. Like, we do things at a breakneck speed. We'll continue to do as much as we can, as fast as we can. I'm excited about the opportunity, but I'm super excited about the fact that for the first time in 5 years, we're actually going to cut ourselves to a point where every day that goes by, we get stronger. Like, we have not been in that position for a long time. So I believe that when you cut your expenses down below, what's coming in, then you put yourself in a position where you can do things like buy back SPS, buy back deck, buy back cards, burn this, burn that, like all the things that everybody wants to do. And I've witnessed over the whole 8 years, and particularly even more since I've been in this position, the whole silly arguments that people have, like, no, you have to do this to solve the problem, and you have to do that. And they usually revolve around, like, let's get rid of vouchers. That's going to solve our problem. Or let's sell the thing in, deck instead of SPS, or let's sell it in SPS instead of deck. And when you put all that together, it's really just a symptom of the problem, which is we don't bring in enough money to cover our bills. And we haven't for, again, 5 years. We're now going to be in a position where that's going to happen. And then those conversations are much different. Then those conversations become, all right, we're going to make money. Now, what are we going to do with that money? And that's a much better conversation than the conversation of, we have to do this or we're going to die. And that's what's happened, over time. That's where people have got to. Like, if we don't do this, we're just going to go out of business. Well, I want to take that off the table. And I believe this is going to do that. And Clay and I have come up with, there's going to be one very big proposal. So it's a big, set of documents from, the change order to the mechanics of how it will happen and how we will calculate things, and all that stuff, we'll share over the next couple of days. But right now, today, the goal was to get this out, let people understand what's happening. It's better that it comes out quickly and people understand, like, hey, what does that mean? And that's, again, why we have 2 town halls today, because not everybody can attend this one. And while it's recorded, if you listen to a recording, you might not have an opportunity to ask the question you want. So the goal is to spread it out over a period of time to give 2 different ones. Matt will be in on the second one. He was unable to make this one, but he'll be on the second one. So anybody has any questions, we'll be able to ask their question, and I'm happy to address any of it. So I want to thank Clay for, his working through this as well. And let's go ahead and get to the questions. So let's start with Weagle. He's up first. So question: with the development scope tightening, I would assume the features and areas without direct revenue would be the first to drop out. Wouldn't this be time to allow more community involvement and development where it can make sense? For a specific example, let's look at campaigns. It takes time to make a book too, and it's hard to justify the cost of making it when the returns are at least uncertain. I think with code access, it should be possible for any experienced developer to run a rudimentary editor for players to make their own battles and campaigns to publish, and other players to run the game. Such a feature could be outsourced content creation to the community, and I would think many players would have fun creating bosses and challenges. I mean, that's a possibility. I don't know the scope of what that would take to enable that, Weagle. I certainly don't mind leaning on the I don't mind leaning on the community. In fact, in my time here, we lean heavily on the community. Everything from card testing to go ahead.
Dave, the audio is like breaking up really, really bad.
Is it? All right. Huh. I don't know what.
Really quick, I think it's when you have Discord open, Dave. I think I've noticed the pattern.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably like competing audio sources. So my suggestion would be, how about you just close Discord? I'll read the questions to you. How about that?
All right, that'll work.
Okay. So I'll just reread Weagle's question. I think we got most of it, but with the development scope tightening, I would assume the features and areas without direct revenue will be the first to drop out. Wouldn't this be the time to allow for more community involvement and development where it can make sense? For a specific example, let's look at campaigns. It takes time to make a book too, and it's hard to justify the cost of making it when it returns. I think with code access, it should be possible for an experienced developer to build a rudimentary editor for players to make their own battles and campaigns, to publish other players to run in the game. Such a feature could outsource PvE content creation to the community, and I would think many players would have fun creating bosses and challenges.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Can you hear me okay now, by the way? Am I still breaking up?
Yeah, I think it was just an audio. I think it's fine. I think it was just audio basically conflicting between the stream and Discord.
Okay, got it. All right, so number one, I 100% believe in leveraging the community. We do a lot of things with the community, everything from card testing to ideas to, I have meetings weekly with probably 6 different groups on a regular basis. I love getting feedback. I love getting help. We do everything. Twitch is being done by Tails. Buns is doing the contest on Hive. We have all kinds of people doing a lot of things. So yes, I don't mind leaning on the community. I'm not sure what's entailed and what kind of scope is required to do what you asked, Weagle, but I certainly don't mind exploring it. But again, if that's going to, chew up a large part of dev time, then of course I got to weigh that as well. But conceptually, I don't mind. It's just going to come down to the details.
Okay. Question from J-Elf. Land will Mancer continue dev at current pace, which I think was already addressed, but if you want to address it again.
Yeah, Mancer's working harder and faster. So yes, of course he's there. He's going to develop. The land buildings are a big deal. We've been paying for work for 8 months on them. We, have a lot of work already done and invested in that. And yeah, we're definitely going to get that finished. So Mancer's agreed to do it. He's, like I said, he's probably going to end up doing it faster than he would have done it. So I think this is a positive for those people that care about land buildings.
Okay, I think I think this is going to kind of rehash the previous one just a little bit, but from Jedi Elf, we have a talented community. Are you considering tapping the talent pool maybe on a voluntary basis? Could we use more AI to help mitigate, reduce design and developer capacity?
100% Jedi, 100%. And anybody who wants to volunteer to help is reach out to me, reach out to Clay, Blaze, Matt, everybody. Like, at the end of the day, it's a community. You guys own the project. I mean, that's the one thing that I see a lot of people don't really fully understand yet, but you guys own the project. Splinterlands is owned by you guys. We're the developers. You hire us, right, to do things. So 100%, I want to encourage people to help, to make things happen, and support you. So yes, love that.
I would like to add that our team has been educating themselves over the past year on AI using Claude and Codex, and things are starting to kick into gear where all that research and studying is coming to life. So a lot of projects being built with AI, with the leverage of AI, and it's going very well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Next.
I would actually agree with that too. Like, that's one of the things I can tell you is like pretty much everybody that is still like involved in the project has also been like leveraging AI to become more efficient. I think you can clearly see that from the fact of just like how much stuff is getting developed in the last year alone. So I'm, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic that like we continue to leverage AI. We may not slow down much. I mean, it's hard to like accurately predict the future, but I can tell you like we're moving very quickly, and everyone, like including myself, like we've all started integrating AI. Like I help with the team. Basically, like you got people like Blaze that's like learning AI, and we're helping too. And you got people like Royal, Royal and Lilyfire have basically started using AI to do things like, have you seen the new redesigned layout for the website? Like that was done by them who are not like previously devs or coders, but they're able to learn and upskill the new binder project. But yeah, like we have a lot of people that are upskilling and leveraging AI. Next question from OAA. You mentioned not letting historical policies dictate future survival. Can you be more specific about which historical policies are perceived to be threatening the ability to survive? We want to be grounded realist, but without knowing what policies you are concerned, it's hard to know.
Okay, well, first and foremost, revenues must exceed expenses. So that's rule number one. So in the past, we've done things because we felt like the community would be mad, so to speak, if we didn't. And even if it cost, a tremendous amount of money to get it done, there was an obligation to do it, and there was no pushback. Like, can we afford it? So number one, we're going to do things that make sense from a financial standpoint. Two, we're going to focus hard on making sure that I think of the word, the modes, I guess, that we have are our strength continue. So for instance, modern ranked is a big deal. Wild is a big deal. Tournaments, brawls, big deal. Just our gameplay in general is a big deal. Land is a big deal. Collectability is a big deal. Those things we're going to continue to do. And there's times when people say things like, well, I was under the impression that this or that would happen. Like I'll give an example of the rebellion cards going out of modern into wild. Matt has already said that he always intended that the reduction when a card was in modern was affected, like it should have been cut in half because the primary purpose of the card at the time was to play the card. So he didn't want to, have people buy the cards and then put them directly on land. But then when they rotated out of modern, then they went to land. Other people assumed or heard or thought, for whatever reason, that production power was not going to change. And it was one of those things where somebody was going to be upset, whether we did or didn't do something with the production power of those cards. That was one of those things that people would argue about and threaten to quit over and blah blah blah, things like that. We're going to do what we need to do, right? And in this case, following through with the fact that those cards, when they move out of modern, should increase the production power to the base level, which was the Chaos Legion error. That is going to happen. So if somebody thought differently, then they're going to, they're just going to have to understand that that's what we're going to do. We're going to do what makes sense. We do not want to relegate cards to unplayability in any mode at all. Nothing can be done. So we're going to do things that make sense, things that I use the word subtle in there, OAA. So, some things are for instance, land cards. Some people are like, I don't want to buy any land cards, and they just dilute land. Well, the land people have to pay for development too, right? So just like the people that play the ranked game, they have to buy new set every 2 years at least, if they want to play modern, or if they want to play their old cards after they go to modern, they got to pay a wild pass. Just like they have to contribute, so do land. Now, how does the land have to do it? By things like the land card edition. We have a land card edition. You can participate or not participate. That's up to you. But the people that do participate are funding, part of the development. So that's what I mean when I say there's going to be a subtle change. But the things that we're going to do is not going to be to protect, bad policies. If we have a bad policy, then we're going to fix it. Another thing I will say is the skew of ranked play, like the R shares formula. That's one of those things where, I don't want to throw out a number, but I'll say greater than 90% goes to the very, very top. And that leaves very, very little for everybody else underneath. Well, guess what? We don't have a lot of people underneath. Wonder why? Because we stopped paying people. Used to be a play to earn game, and people used to be able to come in and play and expect to earn. Now it's not the case. So we have to modify things like that. Now, does that mean that we're going to just massively restructure it? No, but it does mean that we're going to look at that and try to find balance, find a proper balance. Right now, we're out of balance. So we need to fix the balance. Next, Clay.
Okay, question from DeHaas. Has there been any discussion of a regular rotating seasonal event set-based chest sales page that is credit only? Chest could help sell excess DAO packs, asset holdings for new money injections to the ecosystem. I would point out we literally have a proposal up. Actually, I think it just passed. So, but yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, definitely. Number one, we started that with Winterfest back in December. So we, again, got out ahead of some of these issues. And then we followed it up with Summer Fund. And yes, I think it would be a great idea if we always had something running that was special for people. So definitely. And on top of that, people have said, well, what's going to happen to the land card set if it doesn't sell out in that period of time? The answer is don't ask me. I already said their packs are going back to the DAO. So what does the DAO want to do with those? If they want to burn them, they can burn them. If they want to put them in as prizes, in land for instance, they can do that. If they want to put them in ranked play, they can do that. If they want to put them as tournament prizes, they can do that. Again, we created the assets. It's up to the DAO, if they want to help us, get them money. So I'm happy to create things. A lot of what we've done in the past have been to develop tools that can be done. So for instance, now it's much easier to do Summer Fun because we did Winterfest. So once we did Winterfest, we kind of had a template. We can just slightly modify that template, and boom, it's not hard for us to do. So yes, we could do a fall fest. We could do a spring fest. We could do all those things, as well as we could even do it monthly. So I'm all for that.
Okay. Question from Ghostly BG: is the guild revamp still happening, considering the cuts?
The guild is still been behind some of the things that we've had to focus on. It's still a high priority. It's still probably a top 3 or 4 project, but it will be somewhat delayed, as we will have limited bandwidth to do, and that's not something that, for instance, the land buildings is a direct thing that we need to do. Like, we have to do that to finish it, to take it to the next level. I would like to do the guild part, but I want to, for instance, make sure the land happens first. So it's a high priority. It's just not going to happen, I would say, in the next 3 or 4 months. It's probably later in the year at best.
I'm scrolling and looking. Let me see. Okay, question from Sinister. And guys, if you had a question before that, please preface it, because there's just a bunch of chatter, so it's hard for me to. Okay, so question from Sinister. Can you discuss the tokenomic impact of having, for the first time since Chaos Legion, more revenues than expenses? It would seem logically that this would provide options for both SMC and the DAO to buy SPS or deck back over time, either for equity for SMC or future player rewards for the DAO, which would in theory put potentially significant buy pressure on the ecosystem tokens. In essence, a reverse burn where the respective party is accumulating assets rather than burning assets and positively impacting price while doing so. Is that something you're comfortable discussing, Dave? If not, I can address it.
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Clay?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some slides out in the chat so that people can see. Like, I prepared a couple, clips basically, so I can explain this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in and not talk, so that it's not, scratchy. I guess when I go over to Discord, I can't talk. So let me put those up and I'll be right there. All right. So Clay, you can go ahead and talk till then.
Okay. Yeah. So to address Sinister's question there, I mean, this was very much a big part of the thinking of why we want to do this. I think that it's pretty obvious, like looking at the current situation and the current burn rate that we were trying to operate with, that it creates a situation where either well, I guess at this point, kind of like the DAO ultimately, but like the company and or the DAO, essentially the development costs, like whatever you want to call it, tends to be like a net drain on the ecosystem. And ultimately, I think it's mission critical to get to a point where we're cash flow positive. I mean, I don't know how I can stress that anymore. It's something that's been kind of like apparent to me for a while, and I think we had the plan that we were going to look at essentially trying to go for like a more or less kind of like break even, slightly conservative approach with the first pass at the proposal to work with the team and buy out the IP. And I think we need to be a little bit more aggressive just to ensure that the mission's accomplished. But I mean, I think Dave's probably got some more like actual specifics that he's trying to pull up on the screen. I'm still seeing the peak post there, but I would say, like, obviously. Yeah, it's still just showing the peak.
Yeah, I know it's not going to be on the screen. I can't share the screen, but I did put it in Discord.
Okay.
So if you
Okay.
guys
Okay. Cool. So
go
go
down to
ahead.
Discord, and I'll go through. I put up four little slides, so to speak. Let's start with the Conclave Arcana sales total, assuming deck value is a peg. It's the colorful one. Last set sale. Again, we have to put, because deck moves every day, and that's a 2-year thing. Our total sales was 2.14 million in US dollars, but assuming deck was at peg. So if you want to assume deck at 22 cents on the dollar, now you're talking like 400 and some thousand to the team, and then another 400 and some thousand to the DAO, which is so total of roughly 900,000. If you want to assume deck at peg, then it would be a million. I mean, excuse me. Then it would be a million essentially. Excuse me. And then at peg, it would be 4 million. So that is what we've done historically. We've done 2.3 to 2.6 in million in sales. So we are now cutting that rate down to 700,000. So the same system that produced these sales, we are now cutting down to 720,000. So you guys are going to pay us essentially 2,000 a day, which comes out to 730,000 actually. So that's a big, a big cushion between what our past sales were from just our last set to where we are. That doesn't count other things. For instance, escalation. We've already sold 400,000 packs. That's 140 million SPS. So that is in addition to the funds that we brought in. That doesn't count the market fees. That doesn't count the miscellaneous items, such as fortune tickets, auction marks, Winterfest, Summer Fun, etc. If you go to the chart, the DAO revenue chart, that's how much we've received so far, or how much the DAO has received, how much we paid, Splinterlands has paid. So to give you an idea what the market fees are, what the card unbinding fees, what the pack sales are, the rental market fees, blah, 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 all that's in there. And you can see the first month, was a total of 9 million deck. The second month was 65 million deck. So far in July, which is only July 5th, that this was done, it's already 87 million. So again, that's in addition to the regular sales. So that gives you some perspective. Right now, it's a total of 163 million in two months and 5 days. So for those people that are worried about like, we've given out 800 million, how are we ever going to recover that? Well, number one, this is one way, and two, we're not going to give out the same amount, because let's go to the next chart, which is the DAO bill for May. If you look in the DAO bill for May, I got the little green arrows that show you paid us a total of 176,000. And out of that 176,000 from the credit conversions, the deck for credit conversions, most of that came that way. There was 145,000 that came in that way, and then the balance was 30,000. So the DAO had to pay 31,000 in stables, but they had to pay 145,000 in non-stables, which was deck, and that totaled 353 million. So again, that's at 5,500 a day. Cut that number down to 2,000 a day, and if you look at each and every day, you can see that if in place in May, that every day the DAO would have more money coming in than they need, which would mean they would effectively be buying back a bunch of that deck each day, as opposed to having it go into the market. And then if you go to the next slide, which is the one for June, I get a little more detailed because I wanted to talk about this, exactly what Tails, along the lines of what Tails talked about. If you look, it was 114,000 the second month, but because deck price went down, it totaled 447 million. So because the price of deck dropped, we got less. The DAO got less money for their deck needed, and therein lies, that's why there was a lot more deck. So again, that situation was due to the fact that the amount was 5,500 a day, which again in this case was 165,000. And if you look in the orange section, the D section, you can start to see direct sales. So in Visions of Erico, again, this is not including the deck. This is just stables or credits that we got from sales. So we got 16,000 in Visions of Erico and another 15,000 in Summer Fun on the first day, or the first day of the sale, last day of June. So since then there's been more, but as of that point there was 32,000 that came in. To put this in context, we're going to now move that number to 60,000 from 165,000. That's 105,000 less that we need every single month. 105,000. It works out to almost $1.3 million when you put it together. So there's going to be 1.3 million less needed to, essentially fund the team. So anything extra is going to be used by the DAO to either buy back assets or fund more development. But again, that's a DAO thing. And again, we're going to operate from a position of extra. To go back and explain the other part of this chart, if you look at the blue versus the orange, I want to point out these because a lot of people have been confused about this over time. In blue, which is column A and B, right? In column A, just to describe what you're seeing, column B is the dollar value, column A is the amount of deck that was transferred. So every day, credit sales get purchased. So let's look at June 1st. There was $5,455, and so the DAO then transfers us 17,221,000 deck. So if you only need 2,000, right, and you get 5,500, then you have 3,500 extra. When you still needed more, then then that 17 million was needed, plus at the end you still needed 18,000 when it was all said and done. Now you're going to be in a position where anything over 60 grand is not needed, right, to pay the bill to us, right? So as you can see, there was 114,000 in the blue this month. There was 145 the month before, and you only needed 60. So now the DAO's going to be in a position where they're going to have to manage that, where it's not just stuff going out. They're actually going to have to buy the deck off the market. They don't have to. I guess they can wait till they run out. But then once they run out, then they don't have a choice. They're going to have to. So, at some point that's got to be managed. You're going to find out more how all that's going to work when we put together a template for the DAO Treasury function. But essentially what happens is the credits coming in should more than cover the liquidity needs, and then it's just a matter of managing the deck needed. That is a swap function, though. Then in the blue, that's a swap function. That is trading one asset for the other. In theory, if you're doing them at the markets, right, there should be no gain or loss at that moment in time. So that's not long-term. That's not what I mean when I say making a profit. That's just a liquidity function. So the DAO will have plenty of liquidity from this mechanic, but that will not be enough to make us buy assets. What will be enough to make us buy assets is what happens in the orange. Indeed, that's actually revenue that goes to the DAO, which means it's money that comes in with, if you look on the left, there is nothing to the left of that. There is no deck that has to go out. So when we do sales there, that $31,900, that's pure money coming into the DAO that can be anything you want with it. After 60,000, then that's pure profit. Now it's that plus what comes in on the first slide I showed you, the deck. So you got two things working for you. You got direct sales and you also have deck sales. So when we get to a period where the money flowing in is greater than the money flowing out, then there's going to be a situation where we're going to propose in the proposal Clay and I have worked out where the team and the DAO split 50-50. The team is going to use their half to make back, or incentivize the people that are taking the cuts, because people are taking massive cuts to make this happen. So, it's their way of recouping that cut, because it's like they have to deliver. If they deliver, then they're going to get paid. It's everybody's aligned. Same thing with the DAO. They're going to get half of the excess. What do they do with that excess? We're going to propose something simple, which is you recoup the assets that you've already lost. So for instance, if you're down, whatever, 500 million DAC, just pick a number, then the first goal will be to get back, your 500 million DAC. Or conversely, if you've lost $50,000 in stables, to also get the 50,000 in stables. That's a DAO decision. They will decide which is most important. And like I said, I love that argument, because when people are arguing about what to do with excess, by definition, what that means is they're not arguing about, staying in business. All they're arguing with is how do we deal with the excess? So again, an average of $60,000 a month is $720,000 for a year, which is well below, if you go back to that other chart, the 2 million and change, or like average of over $2 million that we do historically, which we did for Rebellion and we did for Conclave Arcana. And I would also point out that we did more because of the escalation, 140 million SPS, which might not seem like a big deal to people, but 140 million SPS is a pretty good chunk of SPS. So not sure if I answered that completely, Tails. So feel free to re-ask it again, or clarify the question. I spent some time talking to get these out, so I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly every part of your question. So Clay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's about the best way you can really answer it at this point. I will say that you're going to see like a pretty big and like chunky proposal coming from me in the coming days to address a lot of the things we're talking about now. And like I said, we're going to be doing another call later. So if people have time to like digest and like want to ask other questions or clarify, they can do so on the evening call. Next question is from Malden. Now that the DAO owns the IP, could we please move Discord to be managed by the DAO as well? Could likely turn out to be small savings for the team, as well as what comes to management of it.
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, I would say we pretty much already have, more or less. I mean, like from a security standpoint, to answer your question, no, I don't think we can do that. But like from a functional standpoint, I would say yes. I think we pretty much already have. And the reason why I say no from the security standpoint is like one, you need a centralized owner for a Discord server, which you guys could try to like punt off to me, but that would still be a centralized owner. But also, like, there are things like webhooks and like bot accounts. Like, we actually have moderation bots that are currently running. They kind of like the server. I'm always pretty much active in the Discord, probably way more than I should be. Most of the functions of actually managing the Discord have pretty much been handed off at this point. So I mean, like you can look and see most of the moderators are just community moderators. I can tell you, I myself and like to some extent Dave, like whenever I have to go and like kind of like create a case, I would say more or less like if somebody's getting banned in Discord that's not just like a spam bot or a scam bot or something like that, I mean you can pretty much just say like the buck's gonna stop with me on that. And like I'm pretty open-minded, but like I mean there are some things you just can't do, right? Like you're not gonna like stand around and just make like blatantly false accusations and claims like that. You're not gonna like endlessly, like FUD and just like talk shit nonstop. I mean things like that, like they're gonna get addressed. So if you guys would like to suggest more strict terms, or like if you want to put together a proposal for like the community would like to adjust guidelines, or if if the community wants to put people together to make decisions on things like bans or whatever, like I'm fine with it. But I would say I think it's fair to say like you've more or less already kind of got what you want. Like the team doesn't really so much manage the Discord to any great extent these days. Malden had a second question. I'm not sure if I missed it, but is the team disclosing how many employees will need to be laid off due to the changes?
We haven't disclosed anything, but I'll be happy to disclose it now. The several department heads were moved to contractor status, which means they don't get paid unless we need them. So we can, we moved them to a consulting contract. So if we need them, we will call them and say, hey, can you do this or that for us? But that's going to be a big savings there. The devs, other than Gator, are also moving to a similar setup. And most of them were already contractors, but instead of having steady work that we just paid for, now we're going to do it on a project by project basis. So if we have a project for them to do, we'll reach out and say, how much will you charge us? If we can agree to that, then we will pay upon delivery. So most of the devs are going to, are aware of that. Like I said, I believe that will motivate them to move faster and get more done. So it becomes a win-win at some point. But initially, obviously, we're cutting the amount of money that we're spending. So some of the projects that we were doing in the past are just going to, not go as fast because, we can't do everything. In terms of the other people, like everybody other than the devs or the two department managers, we did lose one person in creative, but everybody else we have maintained. So they all accepted a huge reduction in their pay. And like I said, it's a testament to the passion that they have for the game. I mean, they took, I would say close to average of 50% cut on top of cuts that were already made a few months ago at the beginning of the year. But again, they did it because they believe that sales are going to be higher than where we're cutting to. And the formula that I have for them is the money that we get from the DAO, our 50%, again, I plan on running this profitably. So the 50% that we get, I'm going to directly give to them up to triple where they got cut to. So they actually have an incentive to not only produce and make what they were making, they actually have an incentive to make even more. So it's aligning the cost structure and the incentive structure to what we need to do at this particular time. So we did lose one person in creative. There will be some, elbow grease that needs to come in to, deal with that. But I'm confident we'll be able to do it.
Okay, next question. Gathering the Magic asked, what is the team's focus as far as new or ongoing projects, land, PvE mode, new card set, which do you feel needs to be focused on or completed first?
Well, we have binders coming out tomorrow, so that's first. Land is the building project that Cryptomancer's been working on for 8 months. As I said, that's continuing. The goal of that, I'm hoping, instead of being 3 to 5 months from now, I'm hoping is 6 to 8 weeks from now, as a result of this change. So I think you're going to see a material pickup there. In terms of other projects, we're probably not going to have the ability to start like new things like we talked about the guild overhaul. That's probably going to take some time to see where our sales are for the next set. As far as the next priority, big priority, not little things, but big things, the main set is right around the corner. So Battle for Pretoria, is the next set, and the goal would be to have that out towards the end of the year, early part of next year. So sometime between, let's say, November and December is the goal. And that doesn't count little things like conflicts or voucher cards or things like that. Those are all small stuff that we've done hundreds of times. So those kind of things I'm not that concerned about. But when you're talking about big projects, yeah, the next set is a big deal. Getting land out is a big deal. And then we will have other things going like Boss Monsters is a project that we're going to scope out and see what the cost will be and see if it makes sense to do. I do have some money in budget for things like that. We have other things like Gladiator set, the unlock for the old Gladiator set. There's quite a few different projects that we have on the table. We do have money for some, so it's just going to be a matter of which one's going to take the most priority.
Okay, I don't know, like Luna's moving questions around or something, but so I don't get accused of skipping it again. Question from Luna: with the focus on cost cutting, what about looking at server cost and putting some of those on us by letting us host local servers on our own PCs? I know the answer of dev time, but this also finishes the goal of fully decentralized game, so we can really not worry about what happens to Steam monsters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a relatively large project. So it's not likely to happen, in 2026, but I don't have an aversion to that. In fact, I don't really think I control that. You guys would actually be able to control that. But, like I said, Gator is my one full-time guy. I'm not going to burden him with that at this point because he's going to have his hands full doing a lot of other things until then. So I think that's a good idea. It's just not something that's likely to happen in 2026. And let me also make one other point about server costs and things like that. We've already trimmed a lot from things like server costs and, all the software tools and all that. Like we have been doing that. We've cut pretty hard on all that over the course of the last year and a half.
Okay, I gotta go find back where we were. 1 second. Question from. Let me make sure. Question from Azar Khan. Dave, I appreciate on addressing the expense side of the balance sheet. How do you intend to address the revenue side of the balance sheet? Are we ready to accept the Verico sale will not bring in $1 million in revenue? Sorry for the hard question.
Oh, yeah. I mean, number one, yes, revenue must exceed expenses. So 100% glad you appreciate that, AZ, and hopefully everybody else does. In terms of the Verico set, I mean, it's one set. Like people, of course it would have been great if we would have been able to do $1 million from that set, but we made it intentionally weaker than it could have been, because of objections that people had to the potential impact, or dilution of land. So we used uh, other features to sell the product, things like skins, glint, collectability of the cards. So those are working as intended. So, I know some people like, if that's not their thing, they think, well, why do I want that? And that's fine. I mean, not everybody's going to want everything. But the land cards themselves are just the beginning. Like, these are all commons. I could do a rare, we could do a rares, we could do epics, we could do legends, we could do, a mixture. I mean, we're going to have many land cards in the future. So, Visions of Erico is one of those proof of concept type things. It would have been great if the players would have jumped in and purchased them as they were created, but in mass. I mean, we do have players that are doing it. I bought some. There are people that are buying them, but it's an indication of the strength of the set. So if we in the future, we're it's like cards, right? You're going to make some cards that are super strong, some cards that are less strong, but at the end of the day, you try to target all kinds of objectives. And in this case, creating some new abilities out of it was a very good thing. Creating the ability for newer players or smaller players to be able to participate with some of those abilities and make some of their cards profitable versus not profitable. That was a big objective with this, and I think we hit it. Will we end here? Probably not. I'm sure we'll do more in sales, but we're not going to hit 1 million, mainly because they weren't OP. If they're not OP, then there's certain ROI guys that they're only going to buy if it's OP. So I intentionally did not do it that way because it was one of those things where if we did, then we're not putting. In other words, we need to find out the value of things, and this ability to find out the value. Like, how much do people care about glint? How much do people care about skins? How much do people care about the collectible aspect? How much do people want to get all those empty plots on their land working again? Right? Like, there are things that are going to take place. We are going to activate more land as a result of this set than we would have without it. I can assure you that. Like, people are going to go out and buy some plots just to get these cards. The skins are really cool. You guys really haven't seen them yet. Maybe a few people have seen some demos, but these are things that if people don't want to buy them, that's fine. It's the way it's designed is, that's just more for the guys that did buy them. So that's really cool.
Okay, guys, if you have any more questions, try to get them in. I'm watching for them in like a few different spots. One came from Icy Flow, which I'm not I mean, I'll just read the question, but I mean, it seems kind of like we've already done this. Are there any plans to make Modern League a human league and Wild and automated league and make modern new cards rewards bonus?
Modern new cards. I don't understand the last part of it.
Okay, I'll break them down since it's like multiple questions. Are there plans to make Modern League a human league?
Modern League is a human league.
Okay, that would be what I thought. Is there plans to make Wild an automated league?
Wild is both a human and an automated league. In other words, you can play both. It's anything in Wild.
And make modern/new cards a rewards bonus. Like I that's the only thing I'm not like 100% clear on. Like, are you saying like a rewards multiplier for having modern cards in Wild? Like, it's like that's the only thing I'm not really clear on. But
you said that was like Icy did that.
Yeah, so I guess just clarify if you'd like to clarify somewhere, because like I said, it's like I'm not really understanding since Modern is already a human league, Wild already allows automation. The only thing that I guess like I'm really not clear on is the make modern / new cards a reward bonus. I'm looking
Yeah,
and
I say go ahead and re-ask the question or rephrase that last part because I'm not sure we do make the we do give cards as rewards, for playing modern and also wild.
yeah, that's what I was like. I'm just kind of confused because it seemed like this is like already what we do, but
Yeah, I just saw
I'm
Magic
not seeing.
gathering the Magic's comment. Like he said, he's having the most fun that he's had with the land cards, and I would agree, man. I've had a lot of people talking about how much fun that is to build that set. It's like building a puzzle, making a puzzle, right? Like you need 400 of those suckers, right? I mean, it is not easy to get. So somebody that wants to go out and buy like 100 packs, they got to trade, they got to strategize, they got to figure out which plots best suit them. I mean, it's part of the fun of it. So I think the people that are buying them are really enjoying it, and people don't want to buy them that because they don't think that's fun. That's fine too. Like it's perfectly cool.
Yeah, and to touch on that, I think it's going to be very interesting seeing how the whole land card thing plays out. And I was talking about this last night on I think it was like the Team Possible call. We were having a discussion because some of the people were saying that like they were kind of like underwhelmed with the land card sales. And I mean, like personally, like I obviously I wish they were better for a lot of reasons, but it's kind of weird because you have this like interesting incentive where it's like the people that do max out the land cards are kind of like it's almost like I think that they have like reason to be happy if other people don't participate because there's like a set reward bucket, and if like let's say I don't know, I'm just throwing out a number like let's just say there's like 20 max cards. Well, those 20 max cards are going to be farming up all those like extra skins that are going to basically be like exclusively minted by those 20 guys or 20 cards, whatever. They're going to be getting a lot more glint rewards. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'm curious because like that was something whenever I was like looking over the design doc for it, I was kind of like, well, it's weird because like there are different like tiers of incentives where it's like you could instead of like maxing out the smaller ones to bring more plots online and get like the different incentives there, or if you go for max, you're basically getting like the exclusive minting rights, and like I can tell you some of these skins are pretty sick. So just Icy clarified the question. Um,
Hold on, before you go there, let me just comment really
yeah,
quick, and then you can come back to the IC question. I agree. I mean, that's intentionally done that way. Like, we in the past we had people that min max. They put the minimal amount they can to get the maximum out that they can. Generally, that applied to ROI, right? And you know, it's been an issue over the 8 years that we've been there where like people complain like, oh, the min maxers are just going to take advantage of it, right? And because the economic incentives were aligned, right? And since that was why most people were playing especially in the early days, like economics was everything. Then yeah, they were min max, and then that always created challenges, right? Which is why people talk about how complex the game is. Well, it has to be complex because of things like that. With this, there's a big difference, right? I want min maxers here. I want people to say, "Oh, I really love the skins. These skins are so badass. I want them." Right? Well, what do you need to do to buy them? You need to get them to level 4 and get the factory for the skins. Right? You don't need to go to level 5 or level 6 or level 7 or max level. You can stop right at level 4. Go buy some plots. Right? If you want these skins, and again, when you look at them, hopefully in the next couple of days, Blaze will get some out for you to see. If you're like, shit, I want some of those, and some of them are going to be really rare. Like one of the lines is going to have 5 copies. Another line's going to have 20 copies total. That's it. So if you're one of the guys that want to get one of those 5 copies, all you got to do, buy a plot, or if you have unused plots, use one of your unused plots. Go buy 30 cards, which is $3. Put that card on your plot, and you're in the drawing each and every month. So there's going to be 625 skins given out each month for 12 months. So again, I want min maxes. If people care about Glent, then they got to get to level 6. So that's a major thing. Not to mention, obviously, you get bonuses for the land and for the bloodlines and things like that. And then if you want to go all the way to the max, of course, you get the max benefits, and then you also get the collectibles. So again, I want people to min max. If you care about the skins, then you can stop at level 4, no problem. If you care about the Glent, you can stop at level 6. If you care about the collectibles, then you got to go to max, right? And then if you care about the ROI aspect of it, it works out where the max guys actually come out ahead, right? When you put all things together, but each person can choose what they feel is most important. So again, it's a subtle thing that, not everybody's going to understand, but believe me, the guys that are doing it, they get it. The people that are happy to, trade and go out there and do these things. I mean, that's why you see a lot of positive comments, because it's fun. It's fun to do what you want to do, and min maxing here is great. All right, go ahead, Clay. You can go back to the icy thing.
Okay, so I guess I got clarification here. Basically asking, have we considered making both leagues wild, where one is manual, one is automated, and the modern cards just, I guess, have like a rewards bonus?
We've considered all kinds of permutations of, what's the best route to go. At this time, I don't think that's the biggest problem that we have. Most people understand the wild, and there's a wild pass for it. And, we have a pretty steady group of people that still play their old cards that way. And then we also have the modern, which is the last 2 sets. And then most of the suggestions that happen around those 2 things are ways to, like tilt the balance, like for instance, I want to play in wild and I'm a human because it's more fun, but I don't want to play the wild pass. Like, understand, like that is a mindset. Similarly, there are people that have made points that open up all the cards and then just pay more to the people that buy the new set. So the new set gets, like, let's say 5x bonus compared to an old card. So I mean, all those things are things that can be thought through. I wouldn't dismiss it, because it's certainly things that I think about a lot. But having said that, it's not the most critical thing. Like, the way our game plays right now, with the human players primarily playing modern, the botted accounts generally playing wild, that is working. I think that the bigger changes that are coming, for instance, the brackets, is a big deal, right? Because in the bracket system, you're going to have leagues back, essentially. Like the term, what people used to refer to as leagues, now we're calling brackets. But, if you have a level 1 deck, you'll play against other level 1s. You won't play against max level cards. Or if you have a silver level deck or a bronze level deck, you will play against people in your own league. There will be their own leaderboards and things like that. So we're very close to being able to roll that out, and I think that will be much more impactful. And then I would say all these, nuanced type differences can easily be handled with brackets. So one thing that happens in our game a lot is people tend to extrapolate the current situation and just assume that, like, it's always going to be that way. But to give an example, we're going to move to brackets, right? Well, when we move to brackets, obviously we're going to transition modern rank to brackets, right? And hopefully it goes well. That's why we're doing survival mode, test right now, why we're incentivizing people to play. We're trying to identify problems, and put in place the things that are needed. And then one day soon, we'll flip the switch on that, and then we'll have, the old leagues back, so to speak. But the most awesome part of that is not just that. I mean, that's obviously a needed thing. But in addition to that, we're talking 6 brackets, right? Well, we can have a 7th bracket that does exactly what Icy just said, or an 8th bracket that does something different. We're talking about coming up with a thing called mutations, for instance, where we add, an extra ability or extra stats to a card, and let it be only played in a certain mode, for instance, or a certain bracket, right? So like things like that are all possible with brackets. Like we don't have to stop, at just, the 6 levels. If we find a new and interesting way to play, we can do that. And I would also say that the argument in the past, and it's still made today, is like, we don't have enough players for that. Like, I get that. I 100% understand that. But at the same token, sometimes, you have to like put in place a mechanism that creates that flexibility that you need so that when there are players, you're ready to be able to develop it. So that's what I think the bracket system does for us. And then if we really have a mode that a lot of people are for, let's say Icy goes out and gets, 20 people or 50 people that really like it. And then he talks to, the people, that own a lot of SPS and they like it, right? And we find something that's really cool, then sure, it's not hard. We just add another bracket. That's all. So the answer is yes, those things have been considered, but, getting the brackets out is more important right now. If I didn't answer it, you can re-ask. I don't get to see the questions anymore because you guys took away my Discord. But if I'm missing something, Clay, just feel free to re-ask it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go and build Dave a NASA computer to run Discord.
I don't have it. It's Blaze actually doing. Ron couldn't be here today, who normally does our town halls because obviously it was a short notice. So, he couldn't do it on such a short notice, but fortunately, Blaze is a man of all trades. I mean, he can do many things, and so he was able to figure it out, even though he can't get my Discord to work with my restream.
Okay, we got a question from Jackal, and I mean, I feel like this is like a veiled request for some eye candy, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. Says Dave mentioned many people haven't seen the skins for these Verico cards will mint, and it might be a good way to drive some hype here there. Would it be a good idea to do some eye candy for this? Oh, okay. So yeah, like it literally does say eye candy. Like I was reading it and I was kind of like, I feel like this is where this is going. And he said like maybe 1 skin a week up to when alterations, the rewards draws, start, and maybe another set of streamer reveals. So I don't know. Like I said, I feel like they're asking for some maybe like some eye candy for some of these skins that are going to be coming out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the plan. We just have to work some things out with creative over the next 2 days, and then I should have plenty of things to show off. But we want to show plenty of them before the sale ends, right? Because a lot of people are going to want to chase these skins. So,
Blaze? Can you show the skeleton assassin and the furious chicken? Just put that in Discord.
I'm dropping some in there already, by the way.
Okay, so, I can't see it. But
I know.
Yeah. So you had to be there. You had to be there, guys. Sorry, we're running a little bit of a scuff stream today. We got we got scuffed Ron over there running the stream. Okay, so we got the next questions from Zekrom. Zekrom is asking, is it safe to assume business as usual for the support team? Are there any changes there?
No, support team is good.
Yep. We have an awesome support team. If you haven't gone out,
Royal, Lily, Clem, and Alonzo are all like AA plus, not only in the work they do, but their attitude, the degree in which they roll up their sleeves and get stuff done. I ask for things, they get it. Like those guys and ladies are amazing, and you guys can see. Actually, maybe not everybody can see yet, but you will see tomorrow just how badass, what Royal and Lily did. And honestly, when you realize that Royal and Lily did what they did, when you guys see that tomorrow with the binders, and you see how like good that is, just realize they did that without the developers, and they did that without creative. They did that on their own, using AI, using their skills, their mind, and on their spare time to boot. Like in other words, they didn't like, oh, I'm not going to do my regular job. I'm just going to focus on that. Nope, they did everything that they had to do for their regular job, and on their free time created that whole thing. So I think you're going to see that the support team is just going to knock it out of the ballpark going forward.
Yep. Let's see. I'm patrolling for another question, but yeah, I would just like to say, Lilyfire, if you're listening, I would like to approve one extra $100,000 bar for Royal Eagle. I think he's earned it.
Blaze, can you drop that? Can you drop that video with Lily about the binders? Can you put that in there in case people are on this call and they haven't seen it? Because that's a very good tutorial, so to speak. It's
Sure,
not very long, and it shows, and not everybody necessarily saw it.
Yeah. Let's see.
And by the way, let me say about the binders too, Clay. This is just the beginning. Like somebody's got it. Somebody figured it out. We see the messages, and somebody said, like, guys, you don't understand the significance of the binders. It's more than you think. We have the possibility now gamifying collections. I think that people are going to be shocked at what binders turn out to be. So maybe you don't understand it yet. Just keep your eyes open. I'm pretty sure you're going to be pretty happy as time goes. All right, go ahead, Clay. Sorry.
Yep. I mean that looks like pretty much it. But yeah, I'm like it's funny because like I'm not gonna say like I was like a hater, but like I didn't really initially like I didn't really get the whole like binder thing. But then like the more I think about it and the more that I can kind of like start to conceptualize where it can go, it's not really worth getting into like all the speculation, but like suffice it to say, I think it's got some interesting potential future implications. And there's a lot of things we want to see happen, and I think that like with the team embracing quicker development methods, I'm optimistic. So I know it's interesting because it like seems contradictory that like we're cutting expenses, but like I'm also kind of like I'm slightly optimistic that like we get at least as much, if not more, done. And I mean, like obviously we can't like 100% know that. I mean, development is not a straight line. Development is kind of like one of those things. So like when you start it, there's like always contingencies, and things can like pull in different directions. But I'm really curious to see where binders go, and I've got one pretty good idea of where I think it could head. That like optimistic. So I'll leave it at that, guys. I think binders are definitely a bigger deal than especially like even I was thinking they were going to be.
Yeah, I think we're going to be gamifying a lot of things. Just to give everybody a heads up. So what are traditional things that collectors like to do? They like to collect sets. Well, there's one thing you can gamify. They like to collect what's called rainbows, one of everything. So like in the case of Conclave Arcana, you could get a regular foil, a gold foil arcane, a black foil, and a black foil arcane. That's a rainbow. You can collect, for instance, all the orcs, right? That would be another collection. You could collect certain numbers. So, for instance, I want to collect, let's say, all the sevens out there. So my goal is to go out and get all the sevens. Like there's a lot of ways that people can collect, and then we can motivate and incentivize that in fun ways. And I'm pretty excited about where that's going to lead. So, in addition, of course, the ability to do like sticker books and things like that is also pretty cool. So again, we just put it out, or actually we haven't even put it out. It will be out tomorrow, fingers crossed, assuming there's no problems. And once it comes out, then the potential is, amazing. So I would say that one thing on the binders that, like, I get a lot of messages on Discord. Most of the time they're positive. Most of the time people message me and said, hey, thanks for doing this or that, or hey, that was cool. And I get those kind of messages. Sometimes I get some hateful messages, but by and large, I would say most of them are constructive. People trying to just like either make a comment or something like that. With binders, I mean, people have been chatty. I mean, chatty. Like, hey, what can we do this? What about this? It's like some people like 14, 15 messages, all about binders. Like they're stoked about it. So, again, I think the potential is really big there. And any collector kind of understands that. Like, talk to a Gold Matters, he understands. Like it's pretty natural for him. So, yeah, I'm actually excited too, Clay. I mean, one of these meetings, it's tough to, how do you tell people, that we have to make sure that we're disciplined, right? Well, that's what this is, right? Like in the past, I've used the difference between confidence and hope, right? Like in the past, they've relied a lot on hope, right? Like, I hope Bitcoin moves up, or I hope, we have the halvening makes everything goes up, or I hope all the other cryptos go up, right? And our project goes with it, right? Or I hope we get a Binance listing and things go up. And all those things are good to have, right? Like it's awesome that people have hope, right? But hope is not the same as confidence. Confidence is when you just know, right? You just know that things, are going to be good, right? You just know that, you get through whatever you're doing, and and like the next thing is going to be better. And then the next thing is going to be better. Like you get confidence. We're coming from a period where people lost hope in some cases. They've lost confidence in other cases. And as a result, you can see the prices of our assets, right? I mean, we're at all-time lows on our tokens. We're at all-time lows on our assets, all of them. We've had people leave the game, right? Because they've lost confidence and hope. So my job is to make sure that we fix that. And that's what this is. Revenues are going to exceed expenses to the point where nobody's going to be talking about us going out of, nobody educated, I guess I should say. There will be people that FUD all the time and make stupid comments, but nobody who actually understands how to read a balance sheet and understands what, typical regular business economics, nobody will be able to legitimately point to the fact that, we're going to have a long runway ahead. I mean, if you look at the funds for the DAO and what this is and what our past sales are and what the current just ongoing things are, you're going to see that the runway is a very, very long time relative to what it was before this decision. So this is where people should start getting confidence. It may take, it may take a day, it may take a week, it may take a month, it may take a couple months. I don't know. But, once that confidence returns, then, the opposite of what you've seen, what has happened when things go down is part of it's the market. Part of it is a really tough environment. Bitcoin's down 41%, we're down 58%. Okay, well, is that a reason why it's okay that we're down 58%? Well, hell no, I don't want to be down 58%. But at the same token, I don't want Bitcoin being down 41% either. And then when you look at other projects in our space, I mean, a big chunk of them have gone out of business because it's tough, right? So being able to look at the realistic world that we operate in and understand these mechanics, these are things that hopefully I can convey to you guys to give you that confidence. And, everything's a risk in life in general. But having said that, I feel a hell of a lot better about our future. as of today than I did, at any point since I've been here. So, um, I guess I'll leave it at that. Clay,
Yeah,
is there any more? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So I'm going to share my thoughts on that as well. It's interesting because like I said, I kind of touched on some of the stuff earlier, but it's like Dave and I have like looked at the whole situation. We're trying to look at the entire ecosystem. We're trying to address concerns on multiple points. I mean, at the end of the day, like the fundamental rule of business is like you cannot remain cash flow negative indefinitely, right? So to me, I think we're, like I don't want to guarantee results, right? Like I don't think that it's fair to do that, and I think that like whenever you like, 'cause, like I like somebody asked a question like, is there a plan to return deck to peg? I mean, I think that taking a ton of the sell pressure off and creating a cash flow positive position would logically lead to a situation like that, but like I can't predict the future. So I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is we're taking the steps that I feel like are fundamentally required to lead us in that direction. And you can extrapolate what you want from that. I'm not going to promise you anything because like it's just not how I am. That said, I look at the last multiple set cycles. We run on average, like I feel like we've kind of been fairly stable sales wise in the grand scheme of things. For like we're averaging about 4 million a set cycle, um, and it's one of the reasons why like instead of just trying to run at like a break even kind of pace, we're looking to get ahead of the curve, which I think making these like aggressive cuts and then like realigning incentives to where people that are sticking around are one, like they're here for the project, like they're as much community members as they are team members. And I mean, like these guys love the game, like I love the game, like Dave loves the game, like we all want to see this succeed, not just for us but for everybody that's here and like involved in the ecosystem. And you know I think it's really good that we're seeing Dave create like a creative structure to like align incentives to where people have upside potential and not just like asking people to take cuts. So to me, like that's really good, and it makes me want to go out there and work with the team even harder because like I want to see these guys do better, right? And I think that like being aggressive, getting ahead of the curve, and cutting probably like deeper than some people would say we need to, I think it like almost guarantees us upside potential, right? And to me, like that's the most critical thing is like we have to get cash flow positive because whenever we get to a place where the game is cash flow positive, that's essentially takes it from where development and you could say the team, you like however you want to look at it, like ultimately like these have been net detractors like financially whenever we don't have positive sales, right? But you can also look back and see, like look at how we're with Rebellion. I would say the DAO came out like I don't have the sheets in front of me at the moment. We came out way ahead, right? Like so the DAO invested something like I want to say like 600,000, brought back in seven figures. So we came out clearly ahead with the with CA. We came out ahead, and like annualizing ourselves and kind of like looking at historical examples for I would say like the last 3 years. I think it's realistic to think that we can conservatively still do like 2 million a year in sales, if not more. So if we get to a point, which is basically what Dave is saying, and like what we're looking at with redoing the proposal, is we're going to get under 1 million in expenses, right? Like I think the total number is like what is it, Dave? Like seven? Do you know off
730.
the top? Okay, so
730,000.
okay, so and again, like keep in mind we still have to well, I guess this is more Dave at this point, but like Dave has to go to the board, well, just like I have to go to you guys to present our proposal so that the DAO can vote on it. Dave has to go to the board and get this approved. And also I think it's worth noting, like how many times do you see a company that works out a deal to sell you their IP come back and say we're willing to take less money, right? So like I mean I think the fact that like we're in this position to where we could have just kept going. We could just be trying to maintain and like, I mean, arguably, I'm not gonna say we can't do it. I mean, we could push another core set. We could like find out where it's at. But I do think fundamentally getting ahead of it is how you get to a place where you can realistically and optimistically approach the future. So, is there a plan to return deck to peg? I think there's a plan to make the entire game economy and the entire development cycle and everything we do here more sustainable, and ultimately get to what I feel like is, I mean, I would say, Dave, like even if we cut ourselves in half, I think we still have upside potential. So to me, it's like I think we're in the position to where realistically, it's hard to imagine we're not going to be cash flow positive. I mean, at the end of the day, if everyone abandons the game, no one wants to participate anymore. Obviously, we can't predict the future, but I am very cautiously optimistic here that I think we have major upside potential. I think we're restructuring things that in ways that like I think will benefit all of us, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Like I said, I don't want to I'm not the guy that's going to promise you like money go up, token go up. Like I just like that's just not how I am, and I don't think anybody can responsibly do that kind of stuff. But I can tell you, you've got a team full of people that really care. We're working to do everything we can to deliver a better product, and now you've got Dave and myself working together to what I feel like is comprehensively fix a lot of the economic issues. Like I said, you're going to see a big proposal coming probably by the end of the week. I'm still like working on it. There's going to be, I mean, I would say like arguably there's going to be things in there you're going to need to be open-minded about. Like it's going to be an adjustment on how we do things. It's going to kind of be like future-proofing some stuff that like may not even seem like immediately obvious, but I do think like we have a really good plan here. I think we have a great shot at success, and hopefully that will answer your question and kind of like just share my thoughts on what Dave just said. But like I said, I'm optimistic, man. I don't know how else to put it. Like I know that people hear like, well, we're having 2 emergency town halls, we're having a big announcement, and like I said, I think people have been kind of like expecting the worst for a while, and I mean, I feel like if anything, this is the best. So I mean, like, I'm not just trying to like gas you up here, but like, I mean, when we got people in Discord every day, like just basically waiting for us to say we're going out of business, and what we're telling you is no, we're looking at how to be here for another 10 years. I mean, I hope you can understand that we're not thinking in that mindset at all. Like, I can tell you, like even before Dave took the job, how many conversations have we had where failure is not even like in the realm of our thoughts, Dave? And I don't mean like it's not like something that we've considered as a possibility. I mean, there's no chance that like Dave or I are just giving up and like walking away from this and being like, oh well, sorry guys, we messed up. Yeah. So I mean, I'll leave it at that. Like I said, I don't want to ramble too much, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I think we have a bright future.
Cool, man. And you're going to have a down hall, I believe, later this week. Is that right?
Well, I know we're having the other call tonight, and yeah, I think whenever we put out the big proposal, that's going to kind of like go over. So this is what I'm saying why it's going to be a big one, because like we're going to have to do a change order that's going to basically change the scope of the previous proposal where we agreed to pay the team 5,500. We're going to basically be adjusting to where we're going to agree to pay them based on the expenses that they're currently operating at, and I think part of the scope of that will be there's going to be like some slight compromises or whatever, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're still going to keep trucking along and keep trying to like get out as much development as we can. But I think like we just have to like probably pare down like at least some of that to make it make sense. That said, there's going to also be like some small like well, I don't really think they're small, so I guess that's not fair. But there's going to be like some slight economic tweaks that are going to just I feel like address concerns and kind of like get ahead of what I see as like future problems, right? Like I know one of the things Dave was talking about is like, well, when you're cash flow positive, what do you do with the cash? Well, you know what? I would like to say that, in my opinion, the logical way to handle that and why I would think that like we would address it, ahead of time is like we clearly define that, right? And like DAO do that. I think the only way the DAO can do that is to first and foremost replenish the tokens that are being used to pay for the proposals, like pay for the funding, the development, the team. Whenever those are replenished, then we have a clear structure based on like where's deck at, where's SPS at, and getting those back into a healthy position with whatever the positive cash flow for the DAO is. Once that's met, we have guidelines for how to replenish stables. And again, like you're going to see all of this broken down in great detail whenever the proposal comes out. But for now, I just want you all to know that we're thinking big picture, we're thinking long term, and we're making a comprehensive proposal with the goal of basically addressing a lot of this stuff. So we're not sitting here having to like run new proposals every week to sit there and like have more things to argue about. But hopefully that will give you some insight of where we're at. And yeah, Dave, I think like maybe doing a down hall, like once that's released, so that we can kind of like address questions related to that would probably be good. I don't know if you want to be around for that. I mean, it'd probably be good.
Yeah, I'm happy to be.
Okay.
And also, let me comment on the Y2 town halls. Yeah, we've never done 2 town halls, but this is a pretty big deal, right? Like, can you imagine putting out the release and not having any conversation, right? Like, people would like not know what to think. You can't write down every little aspect, answer every question in a post. Like, you need these town halls to communicate. So, like I said earlier, just to reiterate, we have 2 because, like, for instance, Matt, he couldn't be here today at the 10 a.m. He just couldn't be here. He had other commitment. So he wants to be here. He wants to talk. So he's going to be on the one at 8. So, there's other people that are asleep, right now. So they can't be here for this call. So do they not get to ask questions? Like, of course they do. So again, obviously we can't have 20 of these, but, having 2 staggered out pretty far apart should give a lot of people an opportunity to address questions that, live that they didn't have. So I think it's a big enough issue to talk about. It's a pretty big deal, and it can be read either way. Like, people can look at it negatively, people can look at it positively. Obviously there's going to be some people that, have sold and maybe haven't sold but want to sell, like there's things like that. Like, that's fine. Whatever happens is going to happen. All we can do is control how we handle things. So, if people come in and they spread a lot of information, at least we need to be able to address it in a way that, somebody can go look at a video in the future and say, all right, what did they say about this? Or what did they say about that? Right. So the goal is to try to get as many answers to the questions as possible instead of letting people fill the answers in themselves. And I will also say this, and my experience now in this role here at this company and this dynamic, I've learned that a lot of people make shit up, right? Like, it's just the way it is, right? They see something and then they extrapolate that and as to like something certain, even if it's not based on the truth, right? Like, for instance, somebody told me not that long ago in one of my calls, like, they were like, well, you don't support deck being used, for pack sales anymore. I was like, what? I never said that. And they were like, no, that's what it is, because you're selling the land cards, for instance, with a different formula instead of deck at peg. And I was like, number one, that's just not true, right? Like, that's just not true. Like, I'm perfectly fine with deck being a stable coin that's we sell products in, and it's pegged, 1,000 to 1. But I also believe that you also have to manage a business, and you got to be able to pay bills, right? So you can't be so locked into ideology that you do stupid things, right? Just because, somebody thinks that that's like got to be that way. But, having said that, I'm all for, I believe that by the time the next set sale comes, we're going to be in a position where I think that it's quite possible we could sell deck at peg. Obviously, between now and then, things have got to happen. Confidence has got to come back, but it's really not that complicated of a situation. We bring back stability. We bring back the concept that revenues must exceed expenses. And then on a regular basis, we start returning value by having the DAO, replace all those tokens that went out. Confidence comes back. It's not hard to see deck back at peg. So, and then, if the DAO wants to sell it deck at peg, I got no problem with that. So again, it's just people like extrapolating, like they don't even know, and they say that, or people are like, oh, we're going to run out of deck, like, no, we weren't going to run out of deck. I mean, I've been very aware of what's going on. I pay attention. I spent a lot of time and a lot of energy on Splinterlands solving the problems, and I'm not stupid. I understand, how things work. When the price of the token goes down, you got to give out more tokens. So, like things like that, like I've noticed, people just make assumptions like, well, you're never going to address that. We're doomed. Right. And then that kind of feeds on itself, and other people like tag onto it. And I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing that, can be done about it other than to like have meetings like this, have conversations like this. I'm available via DM. Most people know that by now. Like if you want to talk to me about it, you can send me a message. We may or may not agree on stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm happy to help people understand that, a lot of their assumptions, are not based in, truth. It's based upon what they have in their head. So, like I said, the narrative should shift after today, from one of like, we have to do this or we're going to fail, right? Like that's the current narrative. We have to sell, packs in SPS or we're going to go out of business. We have to sell packs in DEC or we're going to go out of business. Or we have to sell packs in USD or we're going to go out of business. Like all those narratives are all like negative, right? They come from a negative point. Like everybody's scared, everybody cares, right? So there's nothing bad inherently with coming to that conclusion. Just the point is they're at that question because we've been operating because we spent more money than we had that came in. And when that happens, everything eventually gets hit. There is no way to prop one thing up over another. It all moves together, right? Maybe one thing moves ahead of the other, but at the end of the day, you're sucking money out of the system. This is going to flip it on its head. People are going to be in a position where it's going to be the opposite. We're going to bring in more money than we need, right? And when that happens, then the argument is not, hey, we need to do this or we're going to fail. That goes away. It's going to be, we need to do this so that we get the best impact. We need to go buy SPS and get that going up because that's the most important thing. Or we need to buy DEC and get it back to peg. That's the most important thing. Or we need to buy our cards and get rid of the overhang from 2021, blah, blah, blah. Like what, or we need to buy vouchers, or we need to, blah, blah, blah. Whatever those issues are, when you're talking about spending money that is extra, that is a much, much different situation than it is right now, where everybody's like grasping at solutions, right? This is the solution. Spend less than you bring in. That's the solution. So we follow that. Everybody that wants to stick around and see where we head, they're gonna find out like the difference. It's gonna be night and day difference. And those fights that we're gonna have about, should it be DEC, should it be SPS, should it be vouchers? Like, that's great. We'll have those arguments then, and I can tell you they will be far less destructive at that time. So I look forward to it. I don't know if there's any more questions because I got banned from you guys on looking at Discord, but if there's no more questions, go ahead.
Win Boss Monsters.
Yeah. Boss Monsters is it's one of the what I think to be a relatively easy lift. We've already developed the framework for a MVP type boss monster with the overlords that we have in frontier mode. So I think that's something that we can do without a tremendous amount of effort compared to what it would have been had we not done the overlord. So in other words, instead of being a huge project that takes months and months and months to deliver, I think we pretty much have the core done. And so it might be something that is a little more attainable than, most people think. I've actually had a couple conversations with a couple of our devs, and that would be one of the first ones that one of them wants to do. So they think they can do it at a relatively reasonable price in a relatively reasonable period of time. And I'm certainly going to entertain that, because I also think that would be a pretty impactful thing to do.
Question from Neoxian. I feel like it's kind of like what we've been addressing, but the question is, what's the point of deck if it isn't going to be protected and be at peg?
Well, it's still the in-game currency. So the peg value of 1,000 to 1 is the goal, right? So meaning if it's 1,000 to 1, then it shouldn't go too much higher than that. But it's actually working as intended. That's the part that a lot of people don't ever bring up. But when things are down, when people are selling stuff, what happens is they sell their assets and they get deck. What do they do with the deck? Well, if they're selling their assets and leaving the game, they sell deck. So deck naturally goes up in the good times and down in the weaker times. I mean, that's just what deck's function is. It is our in-game currency. So there is no, a lot of people have argued to, like, I hate to use the word manipulate, but try to support a particular thing. It's like the central banks in the world that try to support like their currency at a certain price, right? And if you do that, then you spend a lot of resources to do that, and then you end up many times failing. In fact, most of the time failing, because the market is pretty powerful. And if you actually understand that that's all deck is, it's like a currency. It's our in-game currency. And when things are weak, it's going to go down in value. And then when it goes down far enough, like they say things like, there's a saying in the market that, the cure for low prices is low prices, right? So what happens is people that want out, they get out, but they get out at a discount, right? They don't get out, at, full price. They get out at a discount. Then when they're done, then other people, buy into that token, and then they get the advantage of buying in. Like Matt Clark, he bought a lot of his land with, 30 cent, 32 cent deck, something like that. Because he took advantage of that opportunity when it was cheap. And, is this the low? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how people are going to react. Some people may say, you know what, I don't, I want to sell, right? And if that's the case, if they're big enough, then they can knock it down. We've had several large whales that have sold and knocked the price down, and that's why deck is down. It's not down from any other mechanic. We certainly could have, the team did support for a long time, at our cost, and things like that. And the DAO, could support, trying to like make it go to 1,000 deck to 1. But if you spend all your stables to make that happen, then what do you do, right? Then you have nothing, no reserve whatsoever. So I think that deck peg is a goal, but it's not a goal that you sacrifice everything for. You build products that people want to use their deck on, and for instance, if you create, like, for instance, a land card set, people want to buy the land card set and they got deck, they can use that deck, and the more they use it, the more that, it comes in. And essentially we could have just like said, for instance, on that land card set, we could have just said, let's just do US dollars. Like that was originally what I wanted to do. And then players were like, well, we should be able to use our in-game currency if people have it, right? Well, you can't price it at, you could price it at 1,000 to 1, but then you have to make the pack prices $10 a piece. Then nobody's going to want to buy them. So sometimes you just got to be realistic. Sometimes you just got to say, all right, well, love the concept. We can do it like on our next set sale if deck is like 60-70% on the dollar by then, and the DAO wanted to do it, I see no reason why they can't. But we can't just like blindly not stay in business. We have to make sure that we have the funds to be able to make sure we pay the bills. So when we were headed down the way we were headed down, it just made sense to either try to encourage people to use credits or to use stables, or if using deck, just give them a small discount, not a 400% increase.
Yeah. The discussions moved to we have too many currencies and we should just focus on SPS. I don't know if that's, I mean, it's one of those things that I mean, if somebody wants to put together a comprehensive proposal on how to handle that, the DAO can vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's too complicated for if either of us say yes or no on that, then that's I don't think that's fair. I'm just gonna put it like that.
I would say I want to comment on it. We don't have too many currency. That's ridiculous. What people think is, like somebody said, I think I forget who it was, but let's say they said we should stop doing vouchers, right? Like if voucher cards, we do the, and the implication was that we should just sell them in DEC or sell them in USDC. Okay, again, that goes back to somebody trying to solve the problem of, how do we stop the bleeding, so to speak? How do we stop the fact that we're spending more money than we're bringing in? And, whether you shift those voucher cards to DEC or SPS or, whatever sender, you can do anything you want. At the end of the day, that doesn't solve bringing in more revenue or reducing the expenses below that revenue. Once we solve this problem, then we can have those discussions about the tokens, but the number of tokens we have do not create any of these problems. If people don't understand, the need for each of the token, that's fine. Like maybe some people, it's like the land cards. Maybe some people, don't want to trade. They would rather just buy something, don't make 400 cards, just make one, right? And I just want to buy the thing. I don't want to go trade, right? That's okay. Some people think that way, right? But other people like the idea of trading and the complexity of trying to figure it out. So I don't think the problem is we have too many tokens. I think the problem is, we spent more money than we had, and therefore all the tokens were there. And then people try to argue which one should be preferenced, right? And usually, I hate to say it, but it's true. Most of the time, it's the eyes at which people see it is their own position, right? Like if you got a lot of DEC, then you get really upset when DEC goes down, right? Or if you have cards and they go down, then you get upset about that, right? Or if you have a lot of SPS and it goes down. And, again, all this stuff is all linked together. When you're spending more money than you're bringing in, it's got to come from somewhere. And that's where it comes from, right? It comes from the market. And then we have an actual efficient market, believe it or not. Our market is telling us that, we have more sellers than buyers, right? That's why we're down in price. Part of it is the environment, right? Like I said, go look at God's Unchained, go look at Axie, go look at, the sandbox, right? And you'll see they're down as much or more than us. So it's a whole Web3 thing. So number one, that's the environment. But number two, yeah, sure. Let's look at it and let's look at it realistically. We spend more money than we bring in. That's going to have an impact, on the economy. We flip that around, which is what we're going to be doing here. It's going to go the other way. We're actually going to be talking about buying things, for the first time in a while. Just actually what's funny is, I've seen this argument go around in Discord, and people get really, really hateful about it. But they talk about oh, Clay, you really screwed up. You violated the proposal and you didn't use your stables first and instead use the DEC. And as a result, we're on the verge of going out of business and all that. Tomorrow you could go buy back all that DEC that you sold, probably cheaper than what you sold it for. You sold it for 0.0041 and 0.0025 something. So if you put it all together, it probably averages over 0.0003. And so you go buy back 800,000 DEC cheaper than what you sold it for. And you can do that anytime. So they're sitting there drawing a conclusion like, like this is the problem. Well, no, it's not the problem. I mean, the problem is, the perception was it was going to be a problem. But I mean, you could replace that deck, soon if you want, because you have the stables to do it. And all you did was decide which token to use, whether to use our stables first or use our deck first. That's it. But you can always pick and choose which one you want anytime.
Okay, yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. I know we're going to be coming back on tonight. We're going to do like a second round for the people that weren't able to make this first one. Hopefully some people will be able to like listen to the recording. I'm sure there will be more questions tonight, and we wanted Matt to be here, but I think scheduling issue. He's going to be at the one tonight, right, Dave?
Yep. Yeah, he'll be here at 8 p.m. at the 8 p.m. one. Yeah, he had something and it came up and he wasn't able to change it. So again, that's a perfect reason why we have two, because not everybody can make this one on such short notice. So that's why we have two, for those people that wondering.
Well, hopefully everybody feels like we addressed things head on as possible. Like I said, I think cautiously optimistic is a fair way to describe where I'm at, because I'm kind of like looking at the whole picture. And I'll tell you, like, I don't think we've been cash flow positive, like as a company, as a project. I mean, like, it's been what, Chaos Legion? Chaos Legion was the last time there was like, yeah. So like, I feel like that commitment to getting us to a point where we're spending less than we're, bringing in is like, one, it's good for the company. Two, it's obviously good for the DAO. And I think that, I think it can create a good catalyst event, and I think that just this is the only sustainable way forward, in my opinion. I think getting out ahead of it and just being on top of this is very important. And hopefully you guys agree. I'm hopeful that we're all still here because we care and we want this thing to succeed. And hopefully, just everybody can see that like any decisions being made are to, move us further in that direction. Like, I don't think anybody here wants to fail. I can tell you, like, it's just like, it's not even in my mind as an option, like seeing the lights go off or anything like that. And again, like that's why I just think it's critical that we get ahead of this and we don't like wait, I mean, like, arguably, could we wait like 3-4 months and try to like, push out another core set and just like, yeah, I mean, like we could do a lot of different things, but I think being decisive, getting ahead of it, and just making smart decisions now ensures that we're not sitting there struggling and playing catch up later. So, hopefully everyone understands. Hopefully you guys can see why these decisions are being made. And, I hope you're all going to join us for the rest of this journey, because I think, like I said, in my mind, it's like, what's the next 10 years look like? And I mean, I want to be an old man worrying about, I didn't have a 401k from the DAO. I'd like to be doing this and building a successful game with you guys for, I mean, yeah, I would love if it's the rest of my life, but I mean, like, let's see what the next 10 years are looking like, right, Dave? Yep.
Yeah, and also I'll share with you guys a comment that Matt made when I told him about this. Like, I'm like, Matt, I have to do this. Like, 2 months ago we had the deal, right? And so, we set up the deal and the plan was set up to run at essentially the rate that we expected, right? Which we still expect. However, since that deal, community sentiment has gone negative, right? Like, there are a lot of people that hammer away in there negatively. We're going out of business. We're going to run out of money, and this sucks, and blah blah blah. On top of any other thing, on top of the movement down in cryptos and the general world, we were in a war, or no? I guess we were in a war, meaning the United States. And things deteriorated over that 2 months. So a lot of people would would say, like, why now? Like, I actually thought I was going to get that question, so I was somewhat prepared to answer the question, because why now? Because, like, at the time we made the original deal, again, I structured it. I debated doing this, more drastic action, or doing the action we did. And I figured, like, I don't know for sure. I think we need, I think that, it's a tough market, but I think we can get through it as long as people show up, right, and buy the stuff. Like, we sold 35,000 for the Winterfest, and like, hey, maybe we sell 50 or 60 or 70, right? Like, it's possible. Then on the land cards, like AZ mentioned earlier, like, I thought there was a chance we could do, 500. I think he said 1 million, but I think 500,000 was the goal. So if we could have done 500,000, that would have been great, right? So if people would have shown up, maybe I would have, like, had a different, mindset. But clearly people didn't show up for whatever reason, either because they're negative, either because they're tapped, because they're scared, whatever the case may be. It doesn't really matter. What really matters is we got to, like, make the decision to run the business in a way that people, gain confidence that we're going to be able to make it through this. So, when I showed it to Matt, I didn't know exactly how he was going to react, because, you never know how people are going to react, especially this is, like, his project, and, he's the main driving force there. And, his comment was, yeah, you're making the right call doing this now. We always waited too long to cut, and we were always remaining behind the ball. Right. And, that's just not me. Like, I'm not going to do that. So just so you know, that's why we move quick, because, I recognized, months ago that this could be a scenario, and like, that's how I work. Like, I always operate, on multiple scenarios in the future, and the goal is always to succeed. So, like, some people like doing the Hail Mary thing, like on Binance, for instance, like, oh, go list on Binance and we'll all be rich, and if it doesn't work, then we'll just be out of business. Like, hell, I don't want that. I got a lot of money invested in this game too. I own a lot of cards. I own a lot of great cards, and I'm not going to just Hail Mary stuff, right? So we're going to run this as a business in the sense that, we want to operate and go forward. So for the first time in 5 years, I can comfortably say, that our expenses are now projected to be below our revenues, which is a great spot to be in. So now the fight can be like, hey, what do we do with the extra stuff? Not, hey, what do we got to do so we don't fail? Like, I think it's going to be night and day difference as soon as people realize that. So,
Awesome.
All right, I think we can wrap it up. Clay, anything else?
Yeah, I think that's it. We've devolved into yapping, so guys, we will catch you later. I think you're gonna let Matt out of the dungeon for the next one, right, Dave?
Yeah, he'll be here at 8. So, and by the way, you mentioned that people that didn't ask questions can ask. Like, even if you asked a question on this one, you can ask again. Like, I'm okay with, people asking more than one question on more than one call. So if you like to show up, and feel free, ask away.
Yeah, we prefer questions in triplicate. Answer me these questions 3. But okay, yeah, we'll see you guys later tonight. You can drop questions in the town hall chat throughout the day if you guys think of something. And yeah, I don't know how long the one tonight will go, but since everybody's getting time to digest things, I know this one was pretty much like a kind of like a rapid town hall after the announcement. But drop questions during the day. Show up tonight if you'd like. Like I said, Matt should be there for that one, and I'll be there. Dave will be there. I don't know if that's. I guess that's everybody. Is it just the 3 of us, Dave?
Yeah, it'll be same thing. Me and Matt. And
okay, cool. Okay, cool. So yeah, see you guys tonight. Thanks everybody for being here, and we appreciate all of you.
Yep. Seriously, thank you all.